attention, please. You all can hear me, right? Thank you all for coming to our Scams 101 Spot, Report and Stop program. My name is Darshana Merchant. I am the Reference and Outreach Librarian here as well as part of the Norwood Anti-Scam Task Force. Before I introduce the format of the program, I would like to go over a few housekeeping points. If anybody needs a restroom, there is one on this floor and 3 downstairs. If anybody needs water, right over here. I would love it at this point if people silence their phones so we can all listen to this important topic. Thank you. One other thing is that, as you can see on the table here, there are lots of handouts along with survey that you can take after the program and let us know what we can change or improve about this program. The format of the presentation is that each one of the panelists will be speaking, and at the end of everyone's speech and presentation, we'll take the question Q&A from you. So hold on to your questions till we all finish the presentations. So the first one up is going to be Kathleen Rooney. She is the outreach coordinator at the Senior Center as well as one of the founding members of the task force. So she'll take you to the history of how we came to be and what we have been up to in a completely non-nefarious way. Next step will be followed by Selectman Amanda Grove, who is going to tell us about all the data that different government organizations collect about scams. What trends they show, and maybe what's to come. Oops, sorry, something by mistake. Sorry, I'll fix that. After Amanda, we'll have Amy Subchik from the One Local Bank, telling us all about how banks protect your data and best tips and practices that you can do to protect your money. And lastly, we have Sergeant William Fandura from the Norwood PD, and he's going to talk about the law enforcement part of the scams. So I'll stop talking now and hand it over to Kathleen. Take it away.
Thank you, Darshana. So I'm just going to speak for a few minutes on the history of the task force, discuss what we've done so far, and our direction for the future. So the Norwood Anti-Scam Task Force was established in June of 2022 by Town Manager Tony Mazzucco. He asked representatives from the Senior Center, the Health Department, the Police Department, and the Board of Selectmen to get together to try and figure out how to protect our senior residents from scams. So in our first few months, we did some research, we listened to some presentations about scams, and realized we needed a little more expertise, so we expanded our task force and included members from the library, One Local Bank, Friends of the Council on Aging, and a local human services agency. So as the group evolved and we learned more about scams, we realized that it wasn't just seniors who were being targeted by scammers. Anyone is a potential victim. And the task force decided the best way to inform residents of scams was through education and outreach. So the first thing we did was create our logo. This is our official logo. You'll see that on everything that's printed by the task force so that you know it's coming from us. Then we started in June of 22, so we knew around the holidays that the scammers would be out, especially when people are buying gift cards. So we designated a postcard that was mailed to all the Norwood households in December. And we added a little jingle. We put on an explanation that a business will not ask for payment in gift cards. And we gave 2 websites that give more information on scams that you can look up, and then the non-emergency phone number for the Norwood Police Department. To make it a little more official, we made sure that we had our logo on it, the Town of Norwood Council on Aging logo, and the Police Department. Our next order of business was to create a brochure. So working on the brochure, we grouped like scams together and we explained how they worked. And at that time, we had a list of 80 different scams that were operating in the United States. So we realized, well, we can't put all the scams on it, and that's why we started to group them together. And then, just as we were getting ready to put the brochure out to print, someone came into our meeting with 2 new scams that we had never even heard of. And we realized that this brochure will be out of date before it even gets to print. So we unfortunately had to scrap that idea and came up with a new brochure. In our new brochure, we decided to explain the behaviors of scammers and talk about how you can prevent becoming a victim. I'm just going to quickly go through the slides because we're going to get into this information more later. So in the first panel of the brochure, we explain why the task force designed the brochure the way it did, that it's a broad overview of scams. Scams have similar characteristics, and the sooner you can spot them, the less likely you are to become a victim. We also included the email address of the task force. Oh, not on that panel, but it's on one of the panels. So, sorry, this is the overview. This is where our email address is, and it's just informational, so you can email us, but just keep in mind it's not monitored 24/7, so if you are being scammed or you have been a victim of a scam, you really need to call the police department, okay? How do scammers find you? These are very sophisticated operations. It's not just someone that's picking a phone number and just trying to get you to give them money. They purchase lists of phone numbers, and then when they call you, they're able to change the caller ID to a local business. So you may think you're talking to your bank or utility company that you do business with, but you're not, all right? So they just hope that you're gonna answer the phone and that you do business with that company. Scammers also purchase lists of street addresses, email addresses, and cell phone numbers. So they also try and contact you by email or text, and they make it look like it's coming from, for example, I get a lot from FedEx or from Geek Squad. So they make it look like it's a well-known company that you may be doing business with. What do scammers say? Scammers prey on your emotions, okay? They may have someone crying on the phone saying they're your grandchild or your niece and they need money to get out of jail, or they were in a car accident, they need to pay the hospital bill. They may say you're delinquent on paying a bill and be very rude about it, or they may pretend to be someone else and profess their feelings for you. So there are clues in how scammers talk a lot of times. They speak quickly with a sense of urgency, and they tell you you have to act right away. They're trying to catch you off guard so that you act without thinking something through. So what can you do to prevent being scammed? I know if I answer the phone inadvertently, or receive a voicemail, email, or text message that wants me to do something right away, if it's a phone call, I immediately hang up. But anything else, I just take a deep breath and look at the message again. And just those few seconds can clear your head, and you realize you don't even do business with that company that's sending you something. And you can delete that text or email or voicemail. If they're pretending to be a company that I use and they're saying I didn't pay a bill or something, I double check my own records to make sure that I paid that bill. And if I have a question, I call the number I have for that company, not what's in the email or text message or voicemail. A legitimate business isn't going to harass you that way. They're not going to make you act right away, right this minute, to pay a bill or something. Scammers also like to leave flyers on your door offering to install a new roof or windows. Maybe you do need a new roof or windows, but do your research on your own, okay, so that, and ask friends and family to see if they have suggestions, okay? Just throw that flyer away. We're all creatures of habit. We do things our own way. We just wanted to include some reminders to try and change your behavior so you won't get scammed. For example, don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number, or answer the text or email. For the future of the Norwood Anti-Scam Task Force, we have a web page that we're working on. It can be accessed from the Town of Norwood website. We'll post information on that web page about scams. We plan to do more outreach, more presentations, and print our literature in other languages. And our goal is to remove the scammers from Norwood. But to do that, we need to educate ourselves, our families, and our friends. We need to listen to one another when they ask a question and try and figure out if they are getting scammed out of money. We need to stick together and ignore these criminals in order to keep ourselves, our money, and our property safe. Now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Amanda.
Thank you. All right, can everybody hear me? Great. So from my end of things, what I've been doing is making sure that we have the best insights into data and trends and sort of understanding how does Norwood measure up to the region or the state or to the national trends. If we find that, oh, maybe a certain kind of scam is happening more often here, then that changes what we need to do. So if you're not as familiar with the general overall trend of fraud in the US, you can see here, this is a report from the FTC, what they call their Sentinel system. Anytime that you have sent in a report about a scam, like if you get a text message and it says report scam, they're scooping that type of stuff up, reports that come from police departments all over the country, and they're tracking what kinds of scams and when did they happen and to what person and how much money was lost or not. They're tracking it all because the more we understand about what has been happening and the ways that it's been happening, then the more effective we'll be at mounting defenses against it. So on the chart here you can see the blue line is essentially the amount of reports that they're getting on a per year basis, and the red line is how much money was lost. And just so that you know, the losses are in billions. If I actually make them to scale, the red line is so huge that you can barely see the blue line. So I had to put it on the second axis. But the major point that was interesting for us as the Scam Task Force is you see right in 2021, there's a crossover where the amount of losses continues to skyrocket, but the reporting sort of levels off. So one of the things we learned right away was that when people were encountering some of these really complex and intense scams, such as romance scams, or such as someone pretended to be a relative that needed jail money, people felt ashamed for falling for it, and then they wouldn't report it. But yet, the criminals obviously are raking in a whole bunch of money, and so that's where you see this divergence of the money's going up, yet the reporting isn't. And so that was another area of focus for us as a task force, is to emphasize to people that this is a crime. You are a victim of a crime, and it's not your fault. It's not something that you should be ashamed of. If it happens to you, it can happen to the best of us. And that if we keep those stories to ourselves, if we never report it to the police or we never tell somebody that it happened, no one knows that it's going on, and that means we can't prevent it from happening to the next people. And so just so we can further dive into how this impacts people, nationally, 1 in 5 people will lose money in an imposter scam, for example. This is based on the FTC's data from basically last year. The top 3 scams that were happening that they were tracking were identity theft, imposter scams, and you notice that third one there, which is called info furnishers and credit bureaus. This is essentially people noticing that there's something not right on their credit report and they're having to call and try to get it corrected. What's very interesting about that one is from the point at which we started monitoring this data, bullet number 3 there for that used to be the number 5 thing, but in the last 2 years it has climbed up to number 3. So these trends evolve. The scammers are constantly looking for new ways to try to succeed, and that's where you'll see them shift tactics, and that's why we want to be nimble by teaching people what are the core things that the scammers always tend to do, because the techniques, even though the specifics are different every time, the underlying techniques tend to be the same. It's kind of like a magic trick. A magic trick isn't very effective if you understand how the magician does it. And so the thing that spoils magic tricks is if everybody talks about how the trick works. And that's what we're trying to affect, is getting all of us to talk about how do these tricks work. We also made a point to assess what what are the ways that people are targeted? Are there differences in how people are targeted? And there are. So what we find is people often think of, say, imposter scams and such as targeting more elders in the community, but we find that younger people actually fall for scams more frequently. The difference is the amount of money that they get scammed for tends to be smaller. So it's a risk to everybody. So we really wanted to increase awareness. And you can see, if you compare the ways that they try to scam, you'll notice that if you're younger, there are certain scams that everybody seems to get hit by, right? We're all getting, someone that's pretending to be the government, right? Younger people get that, older people get that. But you'll notice that there's a couple of them that are a little different. So for the younger folks, they tend to get targeted more often by fake job opportunities, where someone will claim that they have a new opportunity, they'll set them up with an interview, but it turns out that it's absolutely not a real job and that they have tricked them into essentially giving them, they'll claim that there's some reason that they have to pay certain fees for the business and then to scam. You'll also notice that the ways that the scammers will reach out sometimes differs by age. If you're younger, you're more likely to be reached out to by social media or through websites. If you're older, you're more likely to get contacted by phone or by email. So by being aware of where the scammers tend to reach out to, that was another way to sort of be more conscious of what are the vectors that people are using to try to get to me. So you can see here, this is a look at the total amount of fraud reports that are happening from the national level on down. So the national level, they were looking at 1.2 million just in Q4 of last year. So that's just October, November, December of last year. That's 1.2 million across the country. Across the state, we were looking at about 19.5 thousand. And then naturally, because we have a lot more population in the eastern side of the state, a very large amount of that 19.5 happened in the region that we are in. Now, when we were looking at this data, it's great to see, the scope and the scale of this, but we were like, well, how much is happening in Norwood specifically? And which kinds are happening in Norwood specifically? So the Norwood Police Department has been doing a lot of great work with us in the scam task force of A, educating people on where to call when you get scammed, and B, ensuring that when we're receiving those contacts from the residents, that we're very clearly documenting, okay, they say they got scammed, but no, document what was the scam specifically, and what were the ways that the person, tried to avoid it that didn't work, or what were the ways that were convincing and that was the reason that it went through. And so we wanted to start benchmarking what was happening, and the only way that was going to happen was by normalizing our data against the national data, because we need to understand the very specific scams that were happening. And so the net result now is, since we've been doing this process for a little while, what we can do is try to predict where are we against state and national rates. We can estimate, for example, just to pick a very specific example here, I picked impersonation. And so we can look at how much is happening at the national, at the state, at the region, and we can calculate that Norwood, based on the size of our population and who's here, we should fall somewhere between 12 and 37 reports for this time period. And as you can see, in reality, we were at 14, which is right in the range that we predicted. If anything, my guess is it's probably a little low, because you can see it's a little on the small side of the scale. Because again, there's stigma that people have about admitting that it happened to them, and that's what we're trying to really get rid of. We want people talking, we want to be able to measure it, because the more we can measure, the more we can do something about it. And not even just from a personal defense perspective. For the sake of example, the Register of Deeds now has a new tool that people can use where they can set up an alert that if anything gets put through using their name on any sort of land records, it pings you to let you know, hey, somebody just put something in under your name. And so that's a tool that they're providing for free to people because it was a trend that they noticed, and this type of data is what helps us create those tools and those strategies. So from here, we're going to get even more into detail about scamming, about what you should do if it happens to you. But this was my part, was making sure that we had access and that we were measuring what's happening. And the more we measure, the better off we'll be. So we will move along to the next parts of the presentation.
Thank you, Amanda. So I'm Amy Softrack. I work at one local bank here in Norwood, which used to be Norwood Bank.
and I'm here to talk about some of the common scams and some of the ways that scammers actually connect with anybody, really. Some of the most common connections, as you can see, are emails, phone calls, and text messages. As we've talked about, unfortunately, scammers are very tech savvy. They have been able to do what's called spoofing of phone numbers, so that what happens is when you look at your caller ID, you think that caller ID is great and you're going to know who this is, but it actually, they have taken the caller ID and changed it, their number to be somebody else's number that you would know or you would recognize, and that's how they actually get to speak with you. So it's really difficult to avoid sometimes, and it's really easy to be taken in by them. So if you think you're being scammed, don't panic. You can protect yourself. Some of the signs of scams are, as we've talked about, that they pretend to be from an organization that you would normally have business with, either the IRS, the Social Security Administration, a utility company, even your bank. Sometimes they say that there's a problem, or that you've won a prize, even better, that's great. You owe money because it's the IRS, you need to pay this bill, we're gonna have a lawsuit against you, we're going to do something that isn't pleasant, shall we say. Or if you win money, it's even better, this is great, I'm gonna get something. However, they often want something. It's never without a catch. They pressure you to act immediately. You need to act now, or we're going to come and arrest you, or we're going to have the sheriff come and get you. Or they say you need to pay this, and you need to pay this something now, because again, a lawsuit or something bad is going to happen, and they want you to pay it in a specific way. They want gift cards. They want you to wire money. Or they want you to pay sometimes even in cryptocurrency, which most people know as Bitcoin. That's all so that they can't trace that money. Once they get that money, it's gone. You are not getting a gift card back from somebody. You've paid for that and they've had that money now. Some of the red flags that you find in a scam when you get an email or a text is that they request you to click a link or to open an attachment. That often allows for them to insert some sort of malware or virus into your computer, which then they're able to use after the fact to see what's going on in your computer. Oftentimes they request personal information, they are aggressive and threatening, and they use fear-inducing language. As Kathleen said, a lot of times they're preying on your fear or your anxiety. And sometimes they even get you to log into an investment account or your bank account, and by that virus that they've been able to get into your computer, they can see what you're doing. If it doesn't look right or it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't. So please trust your gut. You guys know, you have to be confident in if you think it's not right, it probably isn't. Emails can be very convincing. They have the logos now, but oftentimes something just isn't right in that email. The email address might be a little bit off. A lot of times the email contains a typo or a misspelling or very poor grammar, because it's not always coming from this country, from somebody from inside this country. Oftentimes it's from a foreign country, so the flow of the paragraph isn't normal. Avoid clicking the email attachments. When in doubt, have somebody else look at that. You can just close out of the email. You don't have to do anything. But if you really think it's not right, just delete it. It's just easier. You're not going to reply to it. You're not going to open anything. It's gone. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. A lot of times these great things that you've won the lottery, but now you need to pay the taxes before I can give you that money. That's not right. That doesn't happen. Did you even enter this contest that they tell you that you've entered, you've won? You should never be paying something up front to get a winnings. You would never pay for taxes with a gift card. We wouldn't pay the IRS with a gift card. They don't want that. They want cash. You shouldn't have to be buying a gift card and sending it somewhere, and you shouldn't be creating a crypto or Bitcoin account to pay for anything, ever. If immediate action is needed, stop, take a deep breath, like Kathleen said. You know, just close out of it for a second. Just think, it's okay. They are preying on your anxiety, and they're inducing you to do something that you don't want to do by invoking fear into your conversation. Think about it. Have you received some sort of letter before about a lawsuit or an overdue bill? Are they asking you information about yourself that they should know? They should know your account number. They should know these types of things. They shouldn't be asking you for it. You should just hang up or log out of the email. Shut down your computer if you think that's what you need to do. That's okay. It's not gonna break it. When they're trying to get you to pay for something, legitimate debts should be paid by legitimate means. Don't allow somebody to remote into your computer. This is where the Geek Squad stuff comes in. Something's the matter with your computer. Oh, let me just screen share or something like that. You don't need to do that. There shouldn't ever be a reason for that unless you bring it to the Geek Squad. Again, don't pay by gift cards. Gift cards are a big problem for a big way that fraudsters get their money. Don't wire money to a business that you don't know. If you're wiring it to a business, it should go to a business account, not an individual's name. It shouldn't be, you're sending it to I don't know, let's pick on Best Buy, and it's going to Best Buy at Joe Schmo's account. Also, don't cash or deposit checks for somebody you don't know, because once you give them the money, that's it. That's a new thing that people are getting. They're asking other people to cash their checks. And again, don't wire or send money via Cash App to somebody you don't know. If you think you've been scammed, stop all contact with the scammer. Contact somebody you trust, a family member, a neighbor, the police most especially, your bank. The bank, again, a bank is gonna not ever ask you for your account number. We know your account number. We don't need to ask you that. If we call you, we're not gonna verify that. If you call us, we're gonna verify who you are. The banks and the police are always here to support you. We will never ever, don't ever contact, your bank will never contact you asking you to provide personal information, as I said. Some of the ways to avoid some of these scams with checks is to use online banking or to use bill payments with your companies that you're going back and forth with, so you're not putting a check in the mail. Safeguard your statements. Don't let anybody see them. Try to take advantage of shred days and things like that, so that your statements aren't just going somewhere that somebody could pick something out of the trash or something like that. Make sure you get your mail out of your mailbox, in a timely way. People are ruthless. And also secure your electronic devices by resetting your passwords. I know it's a pain. I can't stand doing it either, but we have to reset them on occasion, because if somebody does get into your accounts, we all do it. We're all guilty of using the same password for different things. So you need to reset them on occasion. It's just a good habit to be into. And again, if you think you're being scammed, just ask for help. Anybody can be a victim. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's more important to safeguard your money. Thank you. Will.
Good evening. My name is William Fedora. I'm one of the patrol sergeants for Norwood Police. Hopefully you can all hear me. I don't have to use the microphone. All right. Good enough. Small room, thank you. 30 of you showed up to learn about scams. We're happy. I'm proud to be on this task force. You're here. That means you're here to learn. You all like your money? Everybody like your money? Yeah, you wanna lose it, you wanna give it away? Probably not, right? Alright, so part of the stigma is to be proud and don't worry about being ashamed if you've ever been scammed in your life. Alright, so little test here. Has anyone ever been scammed by buying something online? They shouldn't have. Raise your hand. Anybody? Don't be ashamed.
Not online.
Not online? Something they saw in the mail, flyer, website, anything. Again, it happens, right? I'll admit it has happened to me. So you'll learn. So I don't want to repeat everything that my colleagues here have already talked about. So I'll kind of go through. I see more things on my side. I see the reports, and I've seen unfortunate cases where people are out a lot of money. That's kind of just, again, like we talk about, if you see an email, just delete it. You get emails on your computer or on your phone. Sometimes you can look at where it's coming from, and the email will have some crazy, like we'll say Best Buy, use Best Buy again. It doesn't say just bestbuy.com, it has like BGY359, some crazy configuration. It's not real. Right now we have tax season. I just got one and I left. I see all the ones that go in my junk box. The IRS is looking for money and something wrong. They're not going to reach out to you like that. Those are all fake as well. We see all the ones that they're scams. The prince in some other country isn't going to give you $1 million. I'm going to give him 300,000. It's not going to work like that. We see these. For the phone calls, I did learn something from. I'm also a co-chair with Kathy on a pricing and invention team. I'm also the elder affairs officer for the department. I learned from a senior that if you let the phone ring 4 times, then if it's one of those robocalls, they'll stop timing. So if you let it ring, get time to wait, let it ring 4 times. Also look at your caller ID. If you don't know the number, don't pick it up. Just let them leave a message. Talking about the app that spoofs numbers. We just had a report this week. Someone used a Norwood police phone number. So it came as Norwood police. Our 78, our own phone number. 781. What's that?
My own phone number.
Your own phone number called?
Yeah. I could not believe that one.
Did you say hi? It's me.
What in the name of God?
And the same thing, emails. Email, I see the same thing with emails. I email myself somehow, I don't know. But that happens. For the phone calls, just let it ring. Don't worry about it. If it's a mess, they leave a voicemail, then at least you can hear who it is. The house visits, are we talking about some of the scams that come to try to do your driveway, to do your roof, windows, clean your carpet we just had. If you don't want the services, don't let them in your house. Please don't let them in your house, because that's the report that someone came in and something went missing after that. If you need some work done, go talk to your friends, find your own contractor, solicit it that way. The solicitors that do come to Norwood and are looking to make some money, do some work, they have to come to the station and they have to register. So we do know them. So if you see someone walking around, you can call us, feel free to call us. Hey, is this person registered? This guy, I don't really recognize this person. Does he have, just give us some more description. What's he wearing? Does he come in a vehicle? We might be able, and call right away too, because if you wait an hour, the person might be still around, but might be gone at that point. I'm going to talk about, don't be ashamed, report to us. So we're trying to track, like Amanda said, I'm trying to keep track of all the different scams. We log them under fraud. Doesn't matter if they got no information or if they got a lot of information from you. Just that we want to make sure we know. Talk to someone about it, someone that you trust. Find out what they might think, but call us as well. We can just tell you, don't worry about it, you haven't lost any money, or we still wanted to take a report on it. It might depend. Good information from the banks, the cashiers. The more information that we teach and explain to everyone and pass on, the tellers have been really great, calling us saying, this isn't right, why is this person taking out this large sum of money, they've never done that before. Those happen great. But these scammers are so good now, they're coming up with backstories. So the backstory is like, if they ask you why, tell them, and they already have a story. And unfortunately, that elder kept with the story and didn't. And the teller was like, oh, making deposit. They had a somewhat of a plausible story for them. So they got the money out, and it was like making another withdrawal when they got caught. Helpful as Uber drivers. We actually foiled one case by an Uber driver saying, this isn't right, I'm picking up this person, bringing them to a bank, and just making chit chat on the drive. Call the police and stop that from happening. That's been real good. Sometimes they're so good that, you know, the scammers are calling our victims, and they say, oh, I don't drive. Oh, I'll take care of it. They send the Lyft, Uber, whatever, cab to your house to pick you up, to bring you to the bank, then to bring you to buy gift cards. Because gift cards, again, we talked about all the different scams with like the grandchild. Everyone know about the grandkid scam? They call that, and those scams are more like, they don't know your grandkid's name. You tell them that. They're like, oh, I don't have a grandkid. I mean, it's your granddaughter. This is, and they'll say, and you say, what's the name? And you give them the information sometimes. So unfortunately, that's how they have that information already. And again, that's the story of what to tell. Another one was just when we had the Uber driver that had nothing to do with it, just picked up, they thought just picking up a fare and just bringing it to the bank. And we were looking for that. It was a while back. It was like a white minivan. It turned out we were able to identify that driver. Had nothing to do with an actual scam. But we did have one a couple years ago, a very sophisticated group. And again, they're coming from other states, other countries. This courier went to Norwood and got a big sum of money from one of our residents, scammed him out. Then they get greedy and went back the second day is when we caught him. So, because in a different one, we had said that the grandson was in an accident. And she did try to call the grandson to verify that. Unfortunately, he was in the shower and never picked up the phone. So she did get some, she went to get some money. The grandson eventually found out, and then we kind of stopped that. But that does happen. We talked with the Uber driver. And again, with the gift cards, if you know how that works, is they want the gift cards, they tell you to scratch off the numbers, and you just read off the numbers. Again, no one's paying bills or anything like that with that. So you might physically have that gift card in your hand, but it's already been used. It's already been made a purchase with. They use the Norwood PD number. Romance scams, we've had that. We just had one today. That, again, I'm not mentioning names or anything, but the person met on a dating app. How many of you have dating apps? No? Wrong crowd? Wrong crowd? Hey, you never know.
All right.
But the resident here met a person on a dating app, and then this great person decided, I'm going to pay off your credit cards. That should have been made some payments. Of course, the checks aren't even coming from their name. Someone else's name on the checks. But the person deposited them, made some payments, and then trying to come up with hey, come away with me. No, I don't want to. We'll give you my money back now. And then like, no, I want my money back. And then started making some threats. They do say they're from drug cartels or gangs, and they have different emojis and pictures they try to send of some bad violence, pictures like that. So people get scared, try to get the money back. But of course, they're not sending the money back to them. Now they're sending money back to a third party. So that's how the money kind of moves around, and the scammer doesn't get caught directly. Again, there are different states that the people go to. So that just comes, we can do that, and we can find it. It's just a lot of paperwork, and our detectives in our offices are doing a hell of a job doing subpoenas and trying to track where that money is going to. So we are able to do that, so please make a report to us, let us know. That's all I really had. Again, we're gonna open it up for questions. If anyone has questions?
I have a question.
I don't have any dating.
I have a question. I had fraud, and it was, believe it or not, the quarterly statements for the government on September 21. And due to that, there was a lot of, the police was involved, the bank was involved, Norwood Bank helped us all through and everything else. There was a lot of paperwork and a lot of headaches that went through. From our accounting to transfer to the government so we wouldn't have to pay interest on it because it took over 3 months. It was the work. Now, can they hold that number? By having these criminals, by having your social security, are they still able to contact you? I get a lot of scams on the phones. I've learned to do a lot of that. I'm really paying attention. I mean, I even Norwood Bank, I still call it Norwood Bank. I don't care about what. I don't like the one on, isn't that terrible? I don't make any secrets about it.
It's okay.
But, Norwood Bank, I wrote a check to a gentleman that I paid for labor, that he did work in an apartment and everything else. And he went to the bank and they called me on my cell phone. Is that okay if we catch this check? I said, is his name Geraldo? And he said, yes. Okay, please do. He worked for it. But it's kind of, I'm thinking, is it trickling down from 21 incident? We went to court, we had done all this, he just got a slap across his face, his hands, and he walked out, giving me a dirty look. That was it. They got nothing. All I wanted to say to the judge is, can they please pay back Norwood Bank? Because they were out of that money. I was covered, but they were out of that money, and that's not fair. Somebody down the line has, but they didn't do nothing. He was dismissed because, what was it that they said? He did not actually cash the check. He had somebody else, which they could not find. One of our office was their president, Jamie Mazzola, and everything else. It just was a mess. Is it that reason that I keep getting all these fraud threats in the house? I've gotten the grandson, I've gotten, hello, how are you? Give me a call back, all these things,
Yes,
and I ignore them.
It's almost like sometimes if you have been a victim once,
You could be again,
yeah,
every
you could
year.
be again. And talking about banks, you were made whole. Sometimes really the banks are the ones that are victims. They're the ones
I
that don't
told
get the
them
money
out
back.
loud to the judge, I said literally, please, whatever money the bank is out of it, I think even though that they're insured, they should be paid for it. And that would make me satisfied. But I have no idea because the thing was dismissed, the attorney took us out, and he just had a grin on his face like say, hey, you lady.
We do our
Was
best
not
to-
nice.
to bring the charges forward. Whatever happens to courts, that's beyond. That's up to the attorney and the judge, unfortunately.
It's a waste. But I'm glad that you answered that. With that, they trickle it down to everything. So is it wise to change your phone number?
I can take that a little bit. So one of the issues, and I know that there's work being done in other branches of government around the problem, is the fact that even if you change your phone number, when you begin to use that phone number to conduct legitimate business with various entities, if any of those entities suffers a data breach, all of a sudden that number is back on a list for another scammer to buy the next time. So that's one of the reasons that we're trying to gather all this information, is so much of security, what they call InfoSec, has been sort of private entities all trying to have their, special proprietary way of defending
so
their
much work.
customers. But at the end of the day, the scammers are all freely sharing strategies with each other to figure out what's the next best scam. So we need to be able to share information on the public side, on the private side, among the businesses on how to best protect people's data.
Like in Amy's slide though, I went to a class, I learned a lot.
No, sorry, I
Oh.
sneezed.
75% of America's wealth is by people 65 years and older. That's the majority of wealth is coming from seniors. So that's why, unfortunately, you guys have the money, so that's why they work hard to try to take the money from seniors, really. Because the youngins don't have the money yet. They don't.
They get scammed, but
I'm
they don't
sorry.
get the money.
I had a question. I've been scammed. I had a computer issue, and the company, it was called GoDad Services, Right Tech Solution. What they were stating is that it's been exposed, and this computer information on your computer could be stolen and you could lose money out of your bank accounts and such. So I had to pay for 1 year of what was the tech, when you have your tech person come and say your computer is working, it's all protected for security. For 1 year, it was $200, so I paid it. I had just lost my husband, I don't know where they got the name, but it was within 2 months. So I committed to a year and they took my $200. I've never dealt with them, but then a year later, they came back that this is over, the protection on your computer is over, so you need to re-up on getting another contract. And this one, we only have available for 3 years. So they scammed me out of another $500.
They escalate.
So right now, it's going to come into the year 2025. And I want to know if you did a role play and you did dialogue, I'm wanting to understand what's the typical thing that I know I had charged it on my MasterCard. So I don't know, that's the only information that I know they had. So if they were to reach out to me in 25 and say, the contract is up, you need to re-up because the 3 years is ending in April of 2025. So I want to know how to respond so that I will have no more dealings with this company. I don't know if they will call me the year the contract expires. They did call me the first year when it was a 1-year contract. And again, my husband died, I just was thinking it was accurate and it was all, a scheme. So is there a role play that you can have a statement to them when they say, you're at a risk and we could do something to your computer, you need to re-up? What can I say so they'll leave this phone number and not continue, bothering me?
Is it on an auto renewal?
Well, I have paperwork that has a date. It's renewing on April of 2025, but I don't know when you say, I don't see a renewal paperwork. The paperwork was a sham, I could tell.
Are they do you already have your credit card number? They're gonna charge you again is what you're
Yeah,
concerned
and I've
about?
already reached out to MasterCard and I've given
Good.
them the knowledge it happened, but is there any statement that can be, knowing I sound like an informed person, to get when they say you need to re-up? What is the statement that would tell them, I've already notified all the important agencies, they are knowing of alert? I want to have a kind of a dialogue in my head that's been practiced, so when they call me, it's time to re-up. What
Could you
are
just
we
get a new
not?
credit card?
Yeah, I gave them
Yeah.
a credit card, yeah.
If you get a new credit card with the new credit card numbers, they're not gonna be able to charge you.
Okay, so I
That's
think
number
that's,
one.
yeah, that's number one. So what do I don't want them hassling me though, so what should I say? I've decided
You
I'm
can
not
tell
gonna
them,
take.
you can tell them, hey, I don't even have a computer anymore, I don't need that service anymore. Goodbye.
Okay, but
That's it.
see, they probably know I have a computer.
How?
Yeah, I mean, I can say I don't have a computer, but
That's all.
they may say they're gonna reach out. Is there any, can I say I'll send the police after you?
Yeah, 'cause you can't.
Good.
Yeah,
But you
Yeah.
could say, hey, I've already used the Geek Squad over at Best
Yeah.
Buy, I've already
Yeah.
used another service,
Yeah.
I'm all set.
oh, okay, and make
Yeah,
it,
don't let them
know.
pressure you.
Yeah.
And don't feel guilty about saying no to them or even threatening to say, look,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
well,
get
I
in
know
contact
they'll
with the
say,
police and the
they'll get into
FTC.
your bank account, they'll use these comebacks that will make me more nervous. So I have to have the dialogue that will give me kind of this is what you say to them.
And
You
that's
say-
what you're talking about, is how they prey on people.
Yeah.
Just tell them you don't have a computer anymore, I'm all set. Goodbye, hang on.
And make it, and you think they won't harass me after that?
What they'll do
You
is
know.
they'll try to apply pressure because they'll say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna threaten you. It's like,
Yeah.
what bigger threat can I give to you than the police and the
Yeah.
FTC? Those are the two buzzwords that they
So,
tend to shy
yeah,
away
that's what I mean, the police, and what was the other one?
from. The FTC, the
Oh, the
Federal
F-
Trade Commission.
Okay, FTC, okay, because I didn't, I
Like, I've
know
had
how-
scammers, if somebody texts me a scam, and as soon as I reply FTC, they ghost me. They're gone, because they're like, oh, FTC,
And that stands for Federal?
Federal Trade Commission.
Okay,
They're the ones that provide all the data that I was
Oh,
showing
okay.
earlier. They're actively tracking and actively coming up with ways to mitigate.
Can I just add something to a question?
As you head out after the program, when you go near the stairs on the left side, there is a display case and lots of FTC related and scam related flyers are over there. So take a look because it talks about IRS scams, tech scams, and the FTC email address and phone numbers, everything goes on that as well. So there are some handouts here, but if you go down there, there are lots more there as well.
Good.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to go to too dark a place, but if you guys have any idea, what is the rate at which per year the U.S. experiences actual kidnapping schemes, like where someone is actually kidnapped?
I don't know the actual percent, but I'd probably say actual kidnap low compared to the fake calls.
So the chances are overwhelmingly that it's a fake call.
Correct.
Thank you.
3 weeks ago, I received a phone call from someone claiming to represent a benefits management firm affiliated with CVS and alluded to the fact that I had had knee surgery, which I haven't had, thankfully. So I said to the gentleman, oh, could you provide me with the name of your supervisor? And at that point, he hung up. But that's very, very scary because for a lot of people, either their drugs are from CVS or from Walgreens. So I was thinking, if you receive a call like that, hang up on them and just contact your health insurance provider to find out if that was a legitimate inquiry, because that was really scary.
Just to follow up on that, CVS has one on email today. And same thing, but if you go back and look at the address, it's all like you just mentioned earlier, all these little numbers and
Mhm.
so you know it's not real, but they have personal information. So, but my question, all right now, or are you finished? I'm sorry.
go ahead.
My question is there another number besides the Norwood Police number that was up there to call if there is a scam? Do we call
To try to
these
get
ladies?
the Norwood Police, you're asking?
Well, we had a scam in the family, this past week, and the family member went to the police station, and they said, we're not interested. And he had a Hollywood.
I need a little more.
Okay, I'd like to talk to you afterwards about it.
Sure, we can go.
Yeah. But that's it.
Okay. Right behind you, sir.
Are any of these slides you used available online? Russ,
Can we put them on our
Yeah,
website?
certainly put them on.
And in the case of the FTC data, especially the FTC Sentinel data, if you go to the FTC's website, the government website, they actually have all of that information available. It's very nice and interactive. You can click, you can even zoom in and look at all kinds of places besides, just Boston. You can look, let's say that you have a place that you like to go for, the winter or anywhere else. You can find out what the scam rates are down there too. So the
that's on the
FTC.
FTC site.
Yep, on the
What about
FTC.
the rest of the?
Yeah, well, we can put this up, can we
On
put
our
it up?
webpage, right? Yeah, we'll put it on our
Yeah, we'll put it on the
webpage.
webpage.
Put
Thank
all
you.
the links
Whose
on the
webpage? The
webpage.
library's webpage? or-
No, it's the anti-scam task force.
Task force?
The task force has a web page and that lives under the police department's.
It's on that yellow folder?
So if you go to norwoodma.gov, you can.
Is it on the top?
If you go to norwoodma.gov and go to the police department link, you'll see the anti-scam task force listed on the left. If you click on that, we plan to basically announce all our programs there, but we can also put in relevant links to the FTC data, today's presentation. We can put all of that on there.
So a lot of the information that was shown tonight will be on.
We'll put that, absolutely, yep.
FTC.
Yep,
All right,
yep.
thank you.
In the back, I'm sorry, you're. Go ahead, ma'am.
It didn't happen to me, but I have a story, what happened to my best friend. She got a phone call, and the person said, Betty, and she said yes. He knew where she lived. He said, I have bad news for you, your grandson got hurt at work. But we found him with drugs, and we have him in jail. He has to be bailed out. I need some money to get him bailed out. He knew the kid's name, he knew it's amazing the information they have. She got scared. She went to the bank. She withdrew $1,200. The teller said to her, are you sure you want to take that much out? And she said, it's my money, I want $1,200 and cash. She said, maybe a check. No, I want it in cash. Came home, got a phone call from the same guy. Listen, I'm holding him. You gotta get back to me now. It really went on. So she said, I have the money. He said, did you get cash? And she said, yes. And he said, well, I know we live. And she said, I don't want you really coming to my house. And he said, well, you have a mailbox that you could put the money into. It was a community. And he said, if it's open, just put the money in there. I described my car. If you're sure, I'll come to your house. I really don't mind. And she said, I was so scared. I put the money in the mailbox, and a car came by, and I went out the door, and he went like hell and disappeared. Her kids found out about it and were ready to commit her somewhere. But she said she was so scared for her grandson that she did what she did. But he was so good. These guys were awesome. The
And
information
that's how
they
they're
gave
making their money, being good and being effective, trying to get you
Unbelievable.
scared into do something very on instinct to go quick.
Yeah.
You know,
But
hopefully.
names and addresses and how they got off,
That's
I
good.
don't know.
You can just Google search most of that stuff. Phone numbers, names.
Yeah,
There-
oh, yeah.
We use like on a police one for law enforcement. We can do different stuff like that. But you know, bad people have access and they find other websites and ways to do it as well. Sadly enough. But you know, did she ever think to call her grandson directly?
No, she didn't call her son,
If she had done that, maybe she'd be would have lost one of
She
her
said
own.
she just
And
didn't,
the
she
other
was
thing
so
about
scared.
calling, the police. I go to the bank, I come back, all right, let's have the police. Now, when you pick up the money in the mailbox.
I don't think he's thinking.
And that's how we did get that courier on the second day.
Right. And the other thing is, for grandkids, you just give them a code. A
Yeah.
code that nobody in the family could put together. It could be, that's what we did. It could be a 4-digit number, a 10-digit number, whatever a kid is able to grasp that they can have. And they have to give you a number. So that way, you're not gonna get that weird.
Techniques like
But
that.
it is a lot of headaches, and it's terrible. I can't still open a credit card. No, it's Equifax. I have to, if I buy something, I have to call them and relinquish for an hour, blah, blah, blah. It's like they control me over this idiot that, you know, mess up my life. And I want you to know the scam that it took on our lives, it was at a mailbox. At a mailbox. Never in my life have ever mailed, 53 years married, mail outside of the post office. But I was particularly one night, on 21 September, I had the envelopes ready to go to the post office, and I was at Home Depot, and I said, oh, let me pick up milk. When I went there to pick up the milk, I saw in my pocketbook, the envelope. I said, oh, there's a mailbox here. I'll just put it down. Well, that's when all this happened, and I didn't find out until October when the statement came in. So that was terrible with that. But now they say they change in the mailbox. But some of these mailboxes are not changed.
So, in Norwood, we did go through one night and we went through every single post office box. They have replaced them all. So the other
They
way,
haven't.
the other way was the flap.
Yes.
Those flaps are gone. Now there's teeth in it. So what happened was you put your checks, your mail in there. Scammers, bad people are putting glue traps, string,
Right.
throwing them down to anything to stick and pulling out your mail. There's check wash and they use certain chemicals. They take your check you write to a bill, they can wash that and they write
Yeah.
out to somebody else.
They
That's
washed
what happens.
that. I was actually gonna bring some of that paperwork here
Yep.
tonight, just to show an example of what that happened, because it was, they washed that out. Now I got a new pen, that you write right on the line, and you cannot scam it.
Right.
It was through a,
You can use different pens now instead of real
yes,
pens. The felt
and
pens.
it was on
to
my
defeat
neighbor,
that.
who is a state trooper, and he said, Rose, let me order you this for you, and these work. Okay, whatever, but then those pens are not cheap, and, you know, you gotta pay attention to it when you write it. But it's very complicated, and it's very disappointing that we live in this kind of environment where you go to work and then somebody can come and take what you have worked.
So they've changed out all the post office boxes in town. They have the teeth down. So what do the scammers do now? they use like the master key called an arrow key. They steal that, they rob the mailman, that opens the backup, and they're able to get that. So they have to like change locks and that, but those are only for.
Is
certain
it safe to give it to the mailman when he comes to your house?
I would,
That is probably, if not going into the actual post office and handing it or putting the slot in the mailbox, probably handing it to a mailman, not leaving it in your mailbox.
I
Somebody
usually
driving
put
by.
it in the morning, I wait for him, he's a sweetheart. He's,
If you feel
he
comfortable
doesn't
doing
speak,
that.
he doesn't hear, and he's a wonderful human being. And, you know, he'll always pick up the mail for me, and even if I'm not right there, he'll just go and pick it up.
You have a question, ma'am?
I did, I have a question and a comment to the bank person. When a wire fraud is being committed and the money goes to the other side, why aren't they checking out those people on that end? Why aren't they flagging them? Why aren't they doing anything?
So oftentimes they've created an account on the other end. So if it's going to an account, a legitimate account.
Yes.
It would be able to be transferred in as a wire in.
Mhm.
Sometimes if we find out about things fast enough, we can get something going, and sometimes we can recall a wire, but it's not often that is helpful.
No, it's a legitimate, my story, my divorce attorney wired $229,000 of my money to a fraudulent account, because they got a wire from me. And they know where that money went to, but yet nothing's being done to those people.
Because the money gets wired right out.
Right, but still, isn't that a felony because
Oh,
they
of course
accepted
it is.
money?
It is, it's wire fraud.
Yes.
It definitely is, yes.
But I don't think anybody is like covering that end of it. No,
So it
they
was a
don't go
fra-
after
It was a
them.
fraudulent account that was created, so unfortunately,
Well, it wasn't a fraudulent account because it was open 2 years prior to the wire.
sometimes they sit and wait, unfortunately. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
They're crazy people.
That's a technique a lot of them do.
If
is they're not
something
making
happened to
one
the bank,
account.
they do flag you after.
Yeah, they won't
Like,
make one
no,
account.
bank,
Make
well, our account is flagged,
Like,
it has a
this is a
Right,
resident.
but your account's flagged, not the people that the money got wired into. Like,
So
they
that
should
same
be flagged,
happens
they
with,
should
They
be
should be
questioned.
flagged. Yes, they should be.
Yeah, a lot of
I'm
them
sorry
don't.
that happened to you, that's awful.
It is awful, nobody, the FTC, they don't care, people. FBI, they don't care either. $500,000 is the minimum that they'll look at.
So a lot of these organizations will make bulk sets. It's not like they have a account that they're working with. They'll make 50 of them because they can. One of the scary things in the current age is artificial intelligence is allowing them to basically expedite their techniques. So in addition to quickly gathering all of the different data breaches into one big pool, which is why they had so much information, besides the fact that they'll try to trick you into giving information to them, they also can aggregate that information across to build a profile of who you are, to try to tell you, oh, I know all this about you. Well, what they know about you is everything that's been leaked in constant data breaches like Equifax and all these other places. So they can stitch together who you are. Then from their end, they can just create accounts over and over and over, and they're playing a constant shell game that we're constantly trying to get in front of. Even email works this way, so when you report junk, in order to even have an email account, the major email vendors such as Gmail, Outlook, any of those guys have essentially what I'll call a credit score for email companies. Before a company can send out more than a certain quantity of emails, they have to prove that they're legitimate. Well, it doesn't take much for these places to essentially line up a whole crop of those accounts because they fire and forget. They shoot out, and then as long as one of them hits, they take what they get and they run. They don't care about that account. They don't ever look at it ever again, and they have 30 or 50 more of them lined up to go down the line.
Right, but also those Gmail accounts, they aren't helping the police, law enforcement, when they try to get the information over who own those accounts. They don't even answer it. Zelly doesn't answer it. None of those people are following the rules.
Certain companies have a law enforcement like branch to them, but we usually have to send like administrative subpoenas to get the information from who opened that account or who has that account. So it is a long trail to do that. It can be done in some cases. I can't guarantee
Oh,
it's
no,
done
but
in every
I mean,
case.
like, it's a big job for you guys, and unfortunately, you guys don't wanna chase it. You know what I mean? You got, it's a lot of work, right?
It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
I had two things. I wanted to ask, is it still a good idea to call the three, Equifax and such?
The three, the credit bureaus, Equifax,
Is that
TransUnion,
still
and
like
Experian.
every 4 months to call a different one?
Every 3 months.
If you call one, it will report to all of them. If you called any one of them, they all talk together, so if you call Experian, they'll talk to all three.
The other thing I was gonna ask is, how are they able to impersonate your grandson, so that you really think you're talking to your grandson or your son or my friend from China?
How are they able to do that?
I thought I was talking to him when they call to impersonate them.
Yeah. So if they have the
How do they
information,
do that?
they have the information of the kid's name, or you tell them,
No.
oh,
No, what I'm asking is, when you hear the voice.
How it sounds like?
The person, it says, I'm your son, you know, how did they do that?
that I don't know how they can recreate.
Some of that's
AI.
very recent. AI voice modulation essentially, where what
And
they'll
they
try to
say,
do-
never to say yes.
Exactly, they'll try to fish data out of different phones to get a sample of your voice. and
Expedia
then-
and they tell you.
And you're also obsessed, so you're already anxious, you're already a little bit on edge about what's going on. So you say to yourself, you hear the voice and you say, well, it sounds enough like them to be that person. So they're using your emotion against you. And that's how they're able to oftentimes get that past you. Because if you're, and the phones, the connection isn't gonna be great, or it's muffled, or,
It sure did sound like those
I'm
three
sure it
people.
did.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
difficult.
Ma'am?
Could I just ask, I had the check washing thing happen to me before a few years ago. What kind of pen is a good pen to use now to write out checks?
Told was off like a felt type pen, not like regular ink.
If you share, if you want, I can give you the name on it. I don't have the name right here,
Okay.
but I can give you the name and a pen, because I bought a whole box.
So they're not like gel pens?
No, it's more like
Like a magic mark?
Yeah,
Like a
it's
mark?
like, almost like a mark, but it's thin.
Oh,
That you
okay.
can still write on the check.
Oh,
And it
wow.
doesn't come out like a
It
mark.
doesn't wash out as,
No, it doesn't wash
Oh,
out.
I
That
see.
one, they
Okay.
can't wash it.
okay.
Go ahead, ma'am.
It's not the same kind of a problem, there was no money involved, but my cell phone was hacked this weekend, and I must have had 1,000 alerts come in. It just came, and I, what do you do other than, I added some anti-scam, and I guess it worked, because as of this morning, I got maybe 5 or 6 alerts, and then they all stopped, and now my phone is working better than ever. My phone kept working, but I did go to the bank, and I had them put a little extra security on my account. Just,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
that's
do
a good
banking
idea,
on the
that
phone,
it
but-
never hurts.
So,
Any other questions?
I just have one. Say, for instance, Verizon. I recently got a new phone a few weeks ago. Say you're talking to them on the phone, Verizon, the tech support people from Verizon, and they say to you, "We'll send you a link, and we'll send you an email, and you click on the link, and then that will give you the information, or that will." I mean, even that I didn't. Well, first of all, he wanted to get on my computer, which I said no immediately. But how about, like, if they say to you, "We'll send you a link with the information, or a form you have to fill out," or something like that?
No, did they call you or you called them?
I called them.
Well, if you call them and you instantly get that answer from Verizon, whether it's a text or email, that would probably say it's more legitimate than if they called you.
I just get nervous when it's about, like, clicking a link
You can always go, there's a lot of stores around, you, there's Verizon stores in town.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can actually go to their actual store, they can assist you.
Most links, if you're working with, if you're on like a computer or on a laptop, you can usually hover your cursor over the link before you click it, and if you look at the, usually it's towards the very bottom, sometimes it'll be towards the very top. It will try to tell you what the URL is going to take you to. So if it says one thing, but you hold your mouse over and it says something completely different, then you know that somebody's trying to pull a fast one. Whereas if you look and it's like, okay, the link that's here matches what's at the bottom, and when I look at the, you know, it's verizon.com/ as opposed to VE-Verizon.3 or just anything suspicious. Also pay close attention to the letters. We've had cases where people will use different fonts to try to do it, or different special characters. So they might spell Verizon, but you look and the O is a 0, and if you weren't really paying close attention, you might have missed that. So it's right to look when somebody says, hey, click a link, even if it's a business that you have called. There is nothing wrong with taking that extra few seconds and going, I'm not sure. So let me give you a great example. Just this week, I was on a conference call. They had an update from the White House with the Transportation Secretary, and I had been invited because I'm on the town government, right, just to get regional updates. And so they had sent out that it was going to be on Zoom, and they give you the date, and you got to register. And so I go and I look, and I notice that the Zoom link that they're using isn't quite what I'm used to. So I'm like, is it though? It wasn't just zoom.com, it was something Zoom. I was like, well, here's one way I can try to figure this out. I went to the White House's website, looked at all of their recent press briefings for recent events, and looked to see how many times had they used that URL for their Zoom events. Was that the same one they always give out? Because if so, it was more likely that the link was safe. But even I was like, maybe I should look a little more closely at this. There's nothing wrong with taking a few extra moments and finding extra ways to
So if you just hover over it like that, you can, it does list it?
Yeah, if you look, it'll show you if I click, this is where it claims it's gonna take me to, and does that match what it says it's gonna take me to?
Another thing to really be careful of is if you're looking for say Verizon, for example, if you go onto your computer and you Google search that, be careful, because sometimes when you Google that, you might get 3 or 4 Verizon entities that will pop up, and some of those may be fraudulent. So, you know, in your case, one of the things that I know I'll do is I might call my local store that way and talk to somebody. That way you know you're talking to somebody in Norwood, as opposed to just Googling it. Again, to piggyback on what Amanda said, if there's a little bit of some letters off in that, those are fraudulent websites that are out there pretending to be Verizon, pretending to be N-Star, other companies that you do business with. So when you do a general internet search, just be careful.
Sir?
Question. How do we do, because we get calls every once in a while in the house saying they're police doing fundraising.
So no one from the actual Norwood Police itself will ever call you for fundraising. We do hire a company that does that. So and they only do it so many times, at certain times of the year. So if you ever have a question of that, call our station, and we know when the advertising, let's call it campaign's going on. So please call.
I was under the impression that Norwood Police now just send you a letter, a mail, and then you send them a check and call it a day.
We have used a letter in one
Yeah.
campaign, but we also had a company as well.
I only have replied to the letters, which I think is very nice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The company that you say you hire, they say they're from out of state, because I get it all the time, and I've asked them to take my name off the list.
Eastern Advertising?
Yeah,
That's who we
so it's out of state, okay. So I said, I always tell them, sorry, I only support my local, and I hang up.
Not a problem, it's okay.
All right. Yeah, didn't get a check.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I get a lot of calls, 10, 15 a day, and some of them are like saying they're from insurance companies to save money on Medicare, and I'm not even on that. I'm not even old enough to be on it. I'm like, what makes you think that I'm on Medicare? And then, you know, they hang up. But I get tons of calls saying that from insurance companies, or even, I'm not sure if it was from, I'm not sure if it says which company it's from, but
They shift how they target based on age. They're sort of taking a wild guess in the dark. They try to predict, I can tell that you've listed yourself as this gender and you are this age according to the documents that we sort of cobbled together. So you have a high chance of being in one of these life stages, and they'll sort of try to target that. And oftentimes they're going to be wrong because they're generalizing. You know, they're trying to statistically predict what you might need or what services you're in. But they're just taking a shot, because remember, for them, it's somewhat cheap and painless to try,
Right.
because if 10 times they try, it fails, but on the 11th, they get a big payout, to them, it's worth it to just try, no matter how many times they're wrong. So that's why they'll keep trying.
So my mailbox is full, and somebody said to, because I'd rather a text, because I'm self-employed, I'd rather read the text than listen to a voicemail, write it down if I'm doing something. But now it's just, I'm just getting constant, and I pick up because I'm expecting a call. And I don't have, unless my contact's in there and it's a new contact, I don't know who's calling.
And they do track how much you're picking up as well. If they get a nibble, they're like, hey, everybody, this one answers their phone.
Right.
And they all
Yeah.
mind.
And sometimes what happens when I'm on the phone, it switches calls.
Switch,
When I'm
what
talking
do you
to-
mean by that?
What's that?
What do you mean by switches calls?
Well, I'm on the phone, and you know how you can, maybe I accidentally do it, you know how you can get you can
Yeah, like
switch,
holding.
if somebody coming in,
Yeah.
you can switch the call, but I don't recall doing it, but it's a flip phone, so maybe possibly I've done it. And like in the middle of the call, it's talking to somebody else.
I had my phone set to like not take anyone that wasn't already a call, so unknown numbers will automatically go off, but the problem is when you get that someone to try to call you, they say, oh, I tried calling you, and they'll leave oh man, so you
Right.
had to switch it. So it's good in that,
Yeah.
but it is a setting you can try.
But, being self-employed, you get calls that
Right,
you don't know.
for that application, might not work.
Right.
There's certain numbers that are less likely to be, I don't know, you get the area code, but are there certain numbers that are definitely not from this area that you would, or it can be,
Not anymore.
like I get so many different numbers, I mean, some are like,
My phone now, and I have an Apple, it's a scam alert. It's a scam, a lot of phones say that nowadays for the numbers, so obviously not anything else.
right, because it's not, you can't go by area codes anymore.
Right.
Yeah, in some cases though, some of the, especially now with, you can buy this computing power from Amazon, I can't recall, the database.
A robokiller.
But what happens is that they have so much computing capacity now is that they'll do just brute force dialing. So it'll be, 508, 123, 1234. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and they'll just keep going and dialing until they get hits. So that's another very common way to do it. It's a bit more scattershot, but if you have that level of computing power, and it's actually very cheap to acquire from Amazon, because Amazon doesn't care who they supply to as long as your check doesn't bounce. They'll just continue to dial until they get someone through.
So is that for protection, or is that?
No, that's just unfortunately how they do it, and so that's how your name can sometimes get into these things, and you wonder, why are you calling me about this? And it's just like, no, your name just came up. In some cases, or maybe you have been in one of the breaches, and what they were touching on earlier is that there's something called the dark web, which is how a lot of your information is out there, and once it's been breached by, let's say there was a big Target breach a few years ago, there was Equifax a few years ago, and that information never dies. It's sitting out on dark web, and as you said earlier, it's just purchased and it keeps recycled.
That's not good.
No, I mean, it's just like once it's out there, it's out there.
Wow. My mail was missing, or,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all set. Questions? Thank you for coming.